to pick back up and discuss the other aspects of how your personality needs affect you, as well as how to determine your personality needs.
Our personality needs also deeply impact our behavior. So I'll give you an example. I had this woman come up to me one day after a seminar that I was doing live, and we were talking about our personality needs. And she said, "Oh my goodness, it's so interesting. I discovered today that my personality needs are comfort, security, emotional connection, and spiritual growth. And my husband's needs are social connection, emotional connection, wealth building, and career." And she was like, "He and I never fight, but every month or so, he'll go out with all of his buddies and they'll get together and he'll bring me out with them. And every single time we go out with them, I somehow create some kind of fight or argument and sabotage the night and we end up at home." And she was like, "And I realize now that it's because I'm out of my needs and my subconscious mind is trying to sabotage the situation and get me back into my needs as quickly as possible." And remember, your brain is doing that. It's trying to consistently get you back into your needs as quickly as possible. So she's out in a social group of people, which isn't the emotional connection, the one-to-one, the depth, the comfort in that connection. She's out of her comfort zone. She doesn't necessarily feel secure, and there's no spiritual element. And so she goes out with her husband and all of his friends, and they're talking about finance and wealth building, and they're talking about their careers, and it's sort of a surface, more social conversation and connection. And what she does is her subconscious mind goes, "Nope, not here, don't want to be doing this." And so she'll pick a fight with her husband without even meaning to or intending to, and again sabotage the night, and they end up home back in her needs again. And so she was like, "Wow, I finally recognized why this was happening." And I'm going to tell you in the next modules what to do about this when we notice our individual patterns of self-sabotage and we start to understand why they're occurring. Our personality needs also impact our feelings of self-worth, our worthiness. Think about this. Imagine that your personality needs are spirituality, emotional connection, social connection, and creativity. And let's say that you're working in a job where you're an accountant. What's going to happen? You're not going to feel in alignment with those needs, and you're probably going to show up to work late every day and resist being there, and you might, skip work fairly often and just be in this constant state of resistance, not be learning outside of work, not be constantly bettering yourself and improving yourself. And then you might see if you're in a position where other people around you are more aligned, that being an accountant is more in alignment with their personality needs. You might see them succeeding and growing and succeeding, and there you are feeling like you're stagnating. And then it's really easy to tell yourself a negative story about yourself as your conscious mind interprets it. So you might be like, "Oh my gosh, everybody's doing better than I am. I'm not as good as everybody else." You might judge yourself. "Oh, why don't I follow through? Why don't I try to better myself? What's wrong with me?" And it's easy to misinterpret that at a more conscious level if you're not clear on what your subconscious personality needs structure is. And keep in mind, your conscious mind will not outwill your subconscious mind. It can only create new programs. So what we're going to do now in this part of the module is we're going to go through your personality needs structure questions, and we're going to go really in depth through all these different questions so that you can get a really clear picture of what your personality needs are, and then you know what to do with this. So keep in mind, as you're answering the following questions, I want you to look for what you are already doing, how you are already showing up, because your subconscious mind will show you in your behaviors and in your patterns that already exist what your personality needs are, and not in what you desire for them to be. So going back to that example, you might go, "Oh, I want to make more money," but if finance or wealth building or financial security, if these things are not deeply ingrained in your personality needs structure, you're less likely to be taking action towards them. It's probably a conscious desire instead of a subconscious program. So how we are going to answer these questions is specifically in relationship to how we already show up in our lives. And one other thing I want you to note as you start to answer these questions is to not judge yourself for these things. You got these through a specific set of voids or a lack that occurred at chapters throughout your life, and your subconscious mind is literally just trying to fill that lack to bring you back into a balanced state. So there's nothing wrong with what your personality needs structure is in any way, and if you have conscious desires or goals that are quite different from your personality needs structures, the best thing you can do is identify them really clearly and then bring them into alignment together, because it is quite difficult and takes quite a long time to deeply reprogram your personality needs structure. It would require endless amounts of repetition plus emotion, and it would be a timely process. And the fastest way we can create change, if our conscious goals and subconscious mind are sort of out of alignment, is to merge these things together. I'm going to show you how to do that in the later part of this course. So here are the following questions, and what you're looking for is the patterns. So first and foremost, what are the patterns behind what you think about the most? And I want you to make sure you keep asking yourself this follow-up question, and it's in your worksheet. It says, why? What needs are your thoughts connected to meeting? So think about it this way. Let's say that you are often thinking about, items for comfort. Oh, is my space comfortable? Do I have all the things that I need to be comfortable? When I get home from work, or where are my comfy clothes? Or, am I in my comfort zone? And let's say a lot of your behaviors and thought processing has a lot to do with like how comfortable you feel. Maybe you find as well that you're often thinking about personal growth or human behavior. Maybe you find that you're thinking a lot about your social commitments. You want to look for whatever shows up for you the most in this question, what's already happening. And you're looking for the top 4 answers for each of these questions. So put, for number 1, what the patterns are behind what you think about the most. Put your top 4 answers, and then ask yourself, next to those 4 answers, why, what needs am I trying to meet by thinking about these things? Question number 2, what patterns exist within what you spend your free time doing? Again, your subconscious mind, because it's responsible for so much, 95 to 97% of almost anything. And if you look at that Freud iceberg diagram, where you've got like the tip of the iceberg being your conscious mind, that little tiny thing above the surface, and then everything else beneath the waterline being your subconscious and your unconscious mind. And so what's really important is that you look for, what do you naturally do? Like, what do you do in your free time, almost no matter what? And you'll see that this is because there's certain needs and patterns within these needs that are being met through these activities. So maybe you spend a lot of time writing, and maybe that's linked to the personality need of creativity. Maybe you spend a lot of time painting, and maybe that's also linked to the personality need of creativity. Maybe you spend a lot of time researching, politics and history and science and this wide variety of topics, and maybe that's related to the personality need for learning. So go through and write down what these things are. And what you'll start to notice as you go through the future questions here is that a lot of these things have interconnected patterns. You might see creativity showing up a lot throughout all of the questions. You might see, learning showing up a lot through all of the questions. And you want to tally at the end, if you want to be really thorough, just what patterns are occurring the most in terms of what needs are being met. Keep in mind as well that you can get multiple needs met from one activity. So for example, you might read about personal growth, and personally growing might make you feel like you have the need met for achievement, because I'm more likely to achieve if I'm always growing, and the need met for personal growth or personal development. And again, if you're looking for a resource to sort of check all of this out within yourself, you have that page there that lists all of the major personality needs. Sometimes they can occur outside of that list, but for the most part, these are the most common personality needs that individuals have. Question number 3. What are the patterns behind how you spend your money? You can think of your money as like your units of energy. If you're making money, you're giving your energy to get money, which you're then giving your energy into the things that you need the most, that your personality needs and values and cares about the most. So look for the why behind that. What needs am I trying to get met through how I spend my money? Let's say some common examples. Maybe you spend a lot of your money on your bills, and maybe that's related to security. Maybe you spend an inordinate amount of money on your car payment or your wardrobe, and maybe that's related to the need for approval or the need for status or power. Maybe you spend a lot of your money going out and doing things, and maybe that's related to the need for social connection that exists so deeply in your personality and that your personality is built around. So again, answer the top 4 and find beside what needs is this meeting for me. Number 4, where do you consistently show up most effectively without anybody pressuring you to do so? We naturally show up well for the things that we care about, the things that are part of our personality needs structure. This might be that we always show up for our social commitments. We're always there no matter what. And that can be the need for social connection. It could be that we always show up for our close friends whenever they need advice or they need help or assistance. And that can be the need for emotional connection. If it's more one-to-one and more deeply focused in the emotional components of the relationship. Maybe we find that we never pay our bills late, and maybe that's related to the personality need of security. Or maybe we are always showing up effectively in our personal growth routine. And again, it can be related to the need for personal growth. Now, keep in mind, and I don't want to get too far into this, but we can look at these needs and we can remember that these are really those streams leading back into the river of our 6 basic human needs. So like the social connection and keeping those social commitments can be related to the basic human need of love and connection. Showing up for our close friendships in question number 4, for how we show up most effectively. That emotional connection can be another form of how we get love and connection. Our bills and always paying our bills on time can be the personality need of security, which can be deeply linked to the need for certainty, which is one of our 6 basic human needs. And then the personal growth routine can be very much related to the basic human need for growth. And we can see that the need for growth as one of the basic human needs can manifest itself as a strategy for career growth, for personal growth, for financial growth. And again, we're just looking for what our personal, most positively built-in associations are in these areas, because that's what's developed our personality need structure. Number 5, what triggers you about the world or other people the most? And what you're looking for as a follow-up question here is why? Why does this trigger me? What needs are being violated when these things are activating, when these things are triggering my emotional responses? And maybe it's something like racism that exists in the world, and that can be violating a need for social justice or for even emotional connection. And again, linking back to love and connection a lot of the time. So we can look for other areas. Maybe it's when people abandon their children, and maybe it feels like, oh my gosh, they're abandoning the emotional connection, or they're abandoning family. And maybe our personality is largely based its needs around emotional connection, or family as means for love and connection. Maybe it's something like when people are lazy. Maybe we go, oh my gosh, they're not interested in achieving. And maybe one of our personality needs pillars is around achievement. So again, look for yours, top 4 answers, and then why. Number 6, what patterns exist in what you discuss with other people the most? What you'll see if you pay close attention is that your subconscious mind is always trying to gear conversation back towards the things that you care about the most, the needs that are so much a part of your personality. So maybe you find yourself going out to dinner and you're always wanting to talk about career or always wanting to talk about finance. And again, these are probably related to your personality needs. You can also find that this can exist in a dynamic of where you tend to light up around conversation the most, what you tend to come alive around and be excited and inspired to talk about the most. Usually that's because your subconscious mind perceives that its personality needs are being supported. Question number 7. What topics do you naturally learn or gravitate towards learning? And this is quite an easy one to identify your personality needs. Maybe it's, psychology and personal development. Maybe it's, something around romantic relationships and it's meeting that need. So just list out top 4 answers for what you tend to naturally read and study about the most. Number 8. What are the 4 non-negotiable needs that your ideal life would have to have structured within them? So if you could create this vision of your ideal life, everything that you want it to have, and then you had to prioritize, okay, what are my top 4 needs that are most important to me in this picture of my life? What would it be? And again, you can look at that personality needs list. Maybe it's to have a successful career. Maybe it's to have, a beautiful connection to family. Maybe it's to have the best romantic relationship. Maybe it's to be achieving all the time. Maybe it's to have like a really comfortable life. Maybe it's to have a lot of freedom. So again, check with that list and see what shows up most for you. And the last question, what are the patterns in your behavior? So what you're already doing for how you naturally prioritize your life right now. So what do you always put as the first priority? For some people, they're always putting their romantic relationship first. For others, it's their friendships first. For others, it's their career. For others, it's their social connections. It's all very individualistic. And write the top 4 things you notice in your behavior for what you naturally prioritize the most. And once you've answered these questions really thoroughly, please take a moment to go through the sample personality needs list and make sure that you've reflected and you're not missing anything for how you're showing up and answering these questions. And I won't go through them in this module, but take a moment to just read through that list and make sure you're really clear in how you're answering these questions. So, what do we do with this? Well, our personality needs are like buckets that need to be filled. And they respond to quality of time and presence more than quantity of time, just sort of like a relationship. So imagine this. Let's say that your personality needs are personal growth, spirituality or spiritual growth, career, and wealth building. And maybe there's like maybe there's a personality need in there around comfort. Well, if you're meeting all the top 4 things all the time and comfort is this trailing need that you've stopped paying attention to, what's going to happen is aspects of your subconscious mind are going to keep giving you emotional feedback. And this can happen in the form of like being tired, feeling exhausted, feeling like your mind is seeking other strategies to get this need met. And if we are not conscious and intentional about filling up our buckets, the symptoms of this will be things like irritability, anxiety, frustration, again, because our needs are eliciting emotional responses. Whether we are living within them and filling those buckets or not, will produce an emotional response as feedback to guide us back towards our individual personality needs. We'll also see that we feel less inspired by life, less happy, less fulfilled, and we'll also see that we tend to feel more exhausted more easily when we're living incongruently with our personality needs. And part of that is a response to that sort of like form of cognitive dissonance in a way that's happening, that friction between what you're consciously intending to do and what you're committed to doing versus what your subconscious mind is always bringing you back to. You can think of it from the GPS analogy. If you're constantly driving in circles and you're missing the route, you're running out of gas over time. So it's very important for us to feel inspired, fulfilled, productive, to have conscious and intentional habits and strategies to get our personality needs met as effectively and as directly as possible. It is super important that we go directly to the source of our personality needs. I'll give you an example. Let's say that you have a really strong personality need related to emotional connection. And let's say that you don't think that you're a great connector and you think it's hard to make friends, or you're in a new city or a new place. Your mind, remember, your brain is always going to do whatever it can to get its needs met as fast as possible. So if your mind doesn't feel like it has all these resources from which to emotionally connect, it's going to look for whatever's available. And so you might find yourself like binge watching television programs, especially things like reality TV where you're relating to some characters and their stories, or maybe like binging on social media, Instagram and Facebook, and looking at people's lives. And these might be forms that your brain is using subconsciously to meet the needs for emotional connection. Well, think of it this way. That's okay to do, but it's sort of like taking this bucket of what your need is and putting it under a tap and then opening the faucet like the teeny tiniest bit. So there's just little drops going into the bucket. It's going to take a long time to fill that bucket up. It's going to be a little bit exhausting to just wait there forever for this bucket to be filled up. And then if you run out of time, you're going to have to go back into your life and doing life with this bucket that's deeply in need of being filled. And maybe it's only filled a little bit because you didn't have enough time to get it filled up all the way. Versus if you have this bucket that's there for emotional connection and you just open the faucet all the way and it just pours out and fills the bucket really quickly because you went directly to the source, then you can go back and you can participate in life feeling more fulfilled, literally, and inspired. So you might compare this to watching a whole bunch of reality television versus actually going out and sitting down with a friend or having a friend come over and deeply conversating, deeply connecting, or doing that with a family member or a partner. There's a huge difference between opening the faucet, it fills up quickly, and you go back to focusing on other goals or intentions in your life versus feeling like you're walking around with just drops in all of your buckets that are not fully being met. And what you'll find, literally, is that this impacts your life energy. There's also a ton of research that says one of the 3 major ways, and I have this in great detail in the depression course, one of the 3 major ways that we feel depressed is when we are living out of alignment with our subconscious needs. And again, we're wasting a lot of time and energy trying to fill our buckets up with little drops and indirect forms of getting these needs met. And it can be exhausting, it can be very unfulfilling, and we can feel a little bit paralyzed in our life when we're not figuring out what our needs are and just going directly to that source. Think of it this way. If you've ever had an experience of moving, when you're moving, your brain has this basic need for that security, that certainty, and that can show up in your personality need structure, more or less than other individuals based on some of your early childhood experiences or other programs. But let's say that, you're moving. Your brain, when you're moving, isn't focused as much on all these other things. It's like, I have to get my need met to be moved in and to be comfortable and secure in my environment, and then I can go back to participating in life again. You're not really moving and then doing 19 other things at once. And if you are in the process of moving, your brain can sort of go into hyper overdrive, trying to just get your system and your environment organized and structured so that you can go back out and focus on your life. And that example is sort of analogous to all of our needs as individuals. Our brain tends to go into this sort of rumination when our needs are not being met, to try to find a way of getting these needs met. And if we're not working with this, if we're not recognizing that rumination is often a symptom or a feedback mechanism to let us know that we have a need that's deeply unmet, and we can't consciously surface this and then create the most effective strategy to go directly to the source, instead our brain just goes for the fastest way, which usually comes with a lot of drawbacks. So we want to have active strategies and habits to fulfill our own needs on a daily basis. And I had somebody ask me the other day, which was a beautiful question. She said to me, hey, if I know what my personality needs are, and then I just create, habits in my morning before I even start my day, to deeply meet these needs as effectively and as directly to the source as possible, do you think that then my conscious mind can be more effective, it can be more focused on goals or intentions that are outside of those subconscious needs if they are out of alignment? And the answer is yes. If you feel like these personality needs are deeply met, your subconscious mind can rest and sort of allow your conscious mind to explore other things a little bit more effectively. But when these needs are not being deeply met, it's really hard for us to focus on any conscious intentions or goals that are falling outside of that need structure. So, one of the exercises in your workbook is the exercise related to your morning routine. And in this, I want you to take a moment once you've defined those personality needs and just write out some healthy strategies to actively meet those personality needs as directly as possible. Again, like opening the faucet so that, the need and the bucket are just filled very completely and very efficiently. And you want to be as intentional as possible here. And as we go into future modules, we're going to talk about how to actually link your conscious goals with your subconscious personality needs, and then go further into talking about your tertiary needs or moment-to-moment needs, which again are like those smaller streams leading to the medium streams that are then leading to the big river of those 6 basic